I have a nightmare that this nation, so richly blessed by God, has now turned into a source of terrible jokes among the communities of nations of the world. I have a nightmare that Nigeria is so unfortunate to have the kind of leaders it has, who only plot to rape the common resources of the people while the people groan. I have a nightmare that corruption has so entrenched itself into the national psyche of everyone, and that it is impossible to define Nigeria without mentioning this great monster. I have a nightmare that we the led have become so docile and foolish that we pitch tents with politicians who stuck in trade in spanning this embarrass of disunity for their own selfish gains. I have a nightmare of a nation where the electorate vote purely out of ethnic and religious sentiment, and will rather vote in a goat as long as it satisfies their base sentimental criteria. I have a nightmare of a nation held captive by terrorism and ethnic militants to the point where it chooses to pay for their silence, even when some still are not ready to end their bloody campaigns. I have a nightmare of a nation that chooses to pretend the issues it has are not worth discussing, but goes about popping champagne bottles every time it's 1st of October. I have a nightmare of a nation where desperate men in need of rehabilitation go about churning out words designed to divide while hoping the evil posture will endear them to those that pretend to champion their interests. I have a nightmare of a nation that calls the name of God in everything, but in reality they are ungodly. I have a nightmare of a people who lack the courage to stand for their rights even in the face of obvious provocation. I have a nightmare of a nation that once did well even without the coming of oil money. I have a nightmare of gigantic granite pyramid in Kano, cocoa from the southwest, countless palm oil plantations lintering the landscape of this unfortunate land. I have a nightmare of a new generation who ought to be removed from the base mentality of old, but spend valuable time arguing on cyberspace and defending those who ensure their currently bleak future remains so. I have a nightmare of a dream that not only calls each and every one of us compatriot, but enjoins all to arise. I have a nightmare of a dream that says, with love and strength and faith, all should join hands to serve our fatherland. I have a nightmare of a nation tilting on the principle and pretending that the evil day is not near. I have a nightmare of a nation that asks everything it truly needs to be great, but spend time basking in the false adulations of men who calls it a giant without having the decency to know that it's at best a giant on its knees. I have a nightmare of a time when the oil ceases to flow, and like a man who didn't prepare for the evil day is left to wail at his avoidable stupidity. I have a nightmare of the amount of money being spent the 1st of October of every year in celebrating mediocrity and failure. But a dream beacons, a dream that one day this nation shall rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. Apologies to Martin. A creed that says the labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. A creed that reminds us of our unity in diversity. A creed that reminds us of our collective responsibility to see that this nation becomes the best it's meant to be. A creed that says we are one nation bound in freedom, peace, and unity. I have a nightmare that must of necessity transform into a dream of hope in the face of despair, and believe in the greatness that we must become. God bless Nigeria.